So in this video, I'm going to go over the full cost, the true cost of building Dorothy. We caught a little criticism in one of the comments. I can't remember who had made the comment. I tried looking for it, couldn't find it. But basically, you had said, well, I want to know what the real cost of building Dorothy is, because if I want to do a similar build, I want to know what I'm looking at. And one of the caveats to this build was that safety items were excluded. So the $3,000 that budget that we had to build the car did not include safety items. So I'm going to go over everything that went into the car. All right, for starters, the purchase price of the car. We actually found this car on Craigslist. It was listed in Compton, California. So we went to Compton and actually pulled the car out of there. It had a Poly 318 in there. He said it ran. Questionable. We had to do some stuff, but it did run when we got it home. But basically we paid $1,000 for the car. 5 of us went in on the car, and so it cost us $200 a piece to buy the car. So purchase price, $1,000. So if you've been following the build, you know that most of the parts that went into this car were donated parts. So to establish what those parts cost and what they were worth, you guys, the fans, the viewers of the channel, all went in and basically gave your best estimate as to what these parts would be worth or what they would cost at a swap meet type environment. All right, intake manifold. It's a Holly Street Dominator. I actually think this is one of the ugliest manifolds ever made, because I'm not a fan of that ridge that's right in there, or that's, I don't know, divot, whatever. But it's actually a really good intake manifold, and a lot of you guys have said so, and you've balked at the price that we came up with for it. So on average, everybody estimated the value of that intake manifold to be $130 in a swap meet type scenario. And many of you called BS on that. But hey, it's what the fans came up with. A friend of mine actually donated the short block to me. He gave it to me. It had a chipped corner where the water pump housing attaches to the block, which is basically going to make that block useless, because no matter what goodies were in it, nobody would ever build a block with a little problem like that. Fortunately for us, it's sealed up. We don't have any issues with it. It had been rebuilt at one point. It has 40 over pistons in it. I'm not sure how many miles are on it. The wear didn't seem too bad, but it did have a flat cam in it. And you guys came up with a $280 swap meet price for the short block. Chris Field over at Motec donated the cylinder heads. These were actually, I believe, the third set of heads that he donated to this build. The first 2 sets, I flipped the heads over, did a solvent test, and they leaked down. So the valves weren't sealing on them. These heads were good, so we used these heads. You guys came up with a swap meet used price of $255 on average. My buddy Robert Sullivan donated the cam. He actually bought a Duster with a short deck in it, and it was a running driving car, and he went with a big block, or a big 440, and so the camshaft, he went a different route, and he donated the cam to us. We don't have the actual specs to the cam, but I believe that just miking it, it seems to be about a 484 lift cam or so. It is definitely a purple shaft Mopar cam, and you guys valued it at around $80. At the time, we actually had a different set of headers. They're like Hedman knockoffs that were made down in Mexico. I got from Bob Mazzolini a while back. So on the run stand, I had asked you guys what you thought the headers were worth, and you guys estimated it to be worth about $50. We've since put these Schumacher headers on there that Chris Field from Motec donated, who's also the owner of Schumacher. He had these used headers that he had gotten, thrown in with some purchase that he made. Anyway, he donated it to the cause. They're pretty expensive headers. We never actually updated that. But I think my buddy Mike Coffey is selling a set for about $300, or he did sell a set recently. But anyway, our estimate was $50. The Sure Grip was the thing that killed us the most on our budget. I was actually really surprised, because I didn't realize that they were going for that kind of money, but you guys averaged the Sure Grip to be about $420, and it had 456s in it at the time. We ended up pulling those out and putting the 391 Sure Grip in there because we wanted a taller gear for the nitrous. But at any rate, $425 was a big hit to our $3,000 budget, which we had already deducted the $1,000 from. So from 2,000 bucks, you know, almost a quarter of that was just in the sure grip. The torque converter, also donated by Robert Sullivan. It's actually a somewhat loose converter, but I couldn't tell you exactly how loose. But anyway, you guys estimated its value at about $90. Chris Field had a 727. It had issues. We had a couple of threads stripped in it, so you've probably seen the videos to that. But anyway, you guys estimated the swap meet value of the 727 at $150. The nitrous setup is a 150 shot nitrous kit. Chris Field took it off of his Charger. And in fact, I think it was rated for 200, but with the jet sizes that were actually in it, it's like a 150 shot. But anyway, you guys estimated its value to be about $200 swap meet price. So all the donated items to the car, basically the estimates of that came out to $1,660. Then there's the things we actually bought. We bought Calvert shocks for the back. Those cost 200 bucks, not cheap. The slicks were a big hit, $470. Front tires, 200 bucks. For the nitrous kit, we bought this progressive controller, which cost $140. The used windshield for the car, when we bought this windshield, it had a crack in it. Not that this really goes against the build or anything. Would definitely be a safety item if we even tracked it or considered it, but I know we spent money on it. And whether you know it or not, 4-doors have special windshields. 4-doors, including station wagons, the roof is actually more forward and taller, and so the glass is actually a longer glass, and so nobody makes them. And the only way you can really get them is used. My friend in Denmark, Fleming, who I know will watch this, will say, I can get them in Denmark. But you know, I wasn't gonna spend, I don't know what it was, $200 or $300, have it shipped from Denmark for Belvedere, which just seems like a stretch, you know, only to find out it doesn't fit. So the used price for the glass was not cheap. It was 300 bucks. Then I bought windshield gaskets, which they don't make for 4-doors either. I basically bought 2 gaskets. They're 200 bucks a piece. And I cut them in 2. So I used a lower half for the bottom, and then I cut the top one to length to basically take up, you know, to make it long enough so that it covered the 4-door glass. Valve cover gaskets, we went with Morosos, which are really nice. They have a steel core. Those are $60. The water pump, housing, and thermostat, you know, and gaskets, there's a kit, it's about 200 bucks. I didn't buy that kit per se, but I ended up replacing pretty much all those parts, so we'll just call it 200 bucks. So total purchase on everything was about $2,000. Now for the safety parts. So Chris actually had disc brake conversion parts that I believe came off of a customer's car because he did an upgrade, and he didn't want the parts back, so Chris kept them and then he donated them to us. But if you were gonna buy a disc brake kit today, they're running about 600 bucks. They used to be about 400 bucks. I've bought several, but with today's inflation, they've gone up significantly to about 600 bucks. That does not include the master cylinder. We're just talking spindles, rotors, calipers, caliper brackets, brake pads, and brake hoses, and all the little hardware that goes with that. We ended up replacing the fuel tank on this thing. It was about $170. We also replaced the sending unit, which was about $40. The master cylinder cost about 50 bucks. It's an A-body disc brake master cylinder. Also noteworthy, the 66, I believe 67 and older B-bodies had a single reservoir master cylinder. Chris or I had these parts. We had the, well, it's a distribution block on a Mopar. The proportioning actually happens in the master cylinder. You might think it's the proportioning block, but it's actually a distribution block. And we replaced it with a later model so that we can go front, you know, have a dual reservoir setup. When we did the disc brake conversion, we also put a front end kit on it. The parts, Chris had also had the parts laying around. And if you were to buy it today, a front end kit's gonna cost you about 300 bucks. That's for ball joints, you know, bushings, boots, etc. The radiator is a Champion radiator. Chris also donated that one and that one. That was the one that was in the car with the Poly 318. It's a 22 inch. This was the one that was used in the run stand, which is a 26 inch. And we've since upgraded to the 26 inch because we've had some heating problems or even overheating problems. So if I didn't say that already, it's 300 bucks for a Champion radiator. The electric fans, Dennis donated. He actually paid around $60 a piece for those fans. So you're looking at 120 bucks for the electric fans. The fan shroud came from Champion, the one that I bought, which ended up going to Dennis's car. This is one Dennis bought on eBay or something like that, but it's for a Champion. The one I bought was about $170. The relay kit to run the electric fans, those cost about 30 bucks. So we're looking at about 1,300, or actually about 1,500 bucks for all of those parts, safety parts. So the total cost for everything was about 6,200 bucks to get what you have here. There's probably a few miscellaneous things, you know, oil, spark plugs. I know like plug wires were given to us. The coil came from somebody somewhere. Tachometer, I know I pulled that. I had a spare tack laying around. I threw that in the car. So, you know, we'll probably, I'd say, probably go ahead and call it 6,500 bucks or so. Now, something else we had done is, and we actually had to do this to get under budget, was we asked you guys to price the parts coming out of the car. So if we were to sell the Poly 318, the 727 small block trans that came out of it, the old open rear end, you know, all the parts that came out of the car, if we were to sell it at swap meet, what would it be worth? I don't remember the exact cost, but it offset us enough that, you know, it was probably like $500 or $700. So that actually got us into the green to qualify for not going over budget. Roughly, let's just say the parts you pulled out you did sell, you got 500 bucks for it. You're still looking at around 6,000 bucks. Now, is it worth doing that? You know, it's really hard to say. I mean, Dorothy is a really cool car, despite the fact that she gives me headaches constantly. I've never seen a car give me this many issues as this car, or I should say that engine, because it's mostly been engine related. And when the Poly was in there, this thing just would run all day long, no problems. So anyway, that's hot rods for you. Is it worth $6,000? A 4-door 66 B body with a big block 383 727 8 3/4 sure grip? I don't know. I guess I'm gonna leave that up to you guys to decide. Personally, I'd be hard pressed to spend $6 grand buying this car from somebody. You know, for us, it was worth doing. I mean, we had some camaraderie. We got together. We had a good time putting the car together, laughing, joking, you know, that kind of stuff. That part was definitely cool and definitely worth it. And the fact that most of these parts went into this car were donated definitely makes it worth it, because we didn't actually shell out $6,000. We shelled out far less than that, but there was still some significant big ticket items, like, you know, around 500 bucks for the freaking tires. I know filling the nitrous bottle cost about 100 bucks. Forgot to mention that, you know, buying the front tires for it, oil, whatever, you know, all that good stuff. It was not without expense. Would I recommend you guys doing this build or doing a similar build? Absolutely. I think if you got some like-minded friends to all pitch in together and put a car together like this, and then go take it out to the track or take it to car shows or car cruises or do some sort of special event, I think it's definitely worth it. You know, it's a something to bond over and, you know, joke around with and stuff, and go out and have some fun. So I definitely recommend it. I have no intentions of ever selling this thing. You know, I hope that at different points over time it kind of gets revived into doing something or attending some special event with it. This year it's going to be duct tape drags. It's going to be there. So if you guys are in Tucson, Arizona, shoot, just in a few weeks, you will see it there. And if you can't be there, you'll see videos of it. Hopefully you enjoyed that video. If you did, please give me a like, share, subscribe, and thanks for watching the video.